whoever's bearish is probably going to miss the biggest ever wealth creation phase for Americans and anyone that invests in America.
Even if you think he's serious, which a lot of people don't, but I'll get your opinion. I mean, what's his broader rhetoric here? What is he trying to accomplish in the grand scheme of things?
Well, first of all, Trump's game theory is that whatever he says is serious.
The theme of our discussion is market momentum. What are the drivers for global markets? Equities, gold, and precious metals. We'll be talking about the outlook for economic growth. We'll be talking about the geopolitical forces moving markets. Lior Gantz joins us today. He is a founder of Wealth Research Group, a free financial newsletter. Welcome to the show, Lior. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
S&P 500 currently at 6,500 points. The NASDAQ above 2,100 points. Gold just touching that $3,500 ounce announced level. So $34.76 is the latest price per ounce on my screen. Bitcoin, $102,000. Now, at the same time, on Thursday, August 28th, revisions or advanced GDP came out for the BEA, 3.3% year over year. Revised upwards, and so it was actually stronger than expected. So we've got, on the surface, strong economic performance mirrored by strong financial performance in pretty much all asset classes, at least the major ones that I've listed. It doesn't feel like a bubble, according to some economists, because the underlying economy is still strong. Do you support that statement?
Absolutely. I think we have entered in November 2024, a new stage in the global economy. And on April 1st, with Liberation Day, you basically saw the dismantling of the Bretton Woods system. And effectively, what we're entering into is a hyper-growth stage in the United States, where plenty of the dismantling and the deindustrialization that happened during the Clinton, Bush, Obama, Biden era is coming back. And it's fueled not just by reshoring of plants and factories, but it's also fueled by the AI revolution and tariffs. This combination is a lethal combination, not just for the CCP, but also for Europe. Europe is a very stagnant economic bloc that was built to enjoy the offshoots of the Marshall Plan in 1945 and onwards. And their economic model is basically dying. And the CCP was based on exports. And what Scott Bessent has done beautifully alongside with Howard Lutnick is they have effectively told the CCP what we're working on is an economic plan which will not weaken China, but will rebalance it. And you're already seeing the effects of this. A lot of the manufacturing is moving out to India. There's a corridor of trade that's going to be built between India and Europe. So between that and everything else, we are in an early stage of a hyper-growth phase for the United States, where GDP can actually go up by 5% and 6%, not the sleepy 2-3% that you saw in the last few decades, because that wasn't the real America. You're going back to the real America, nation of builders, and not only nation of builders, but the amount of innovation that's coming to the country with deregulation. That's a combination that you haven't seen in more than 100 years since the era of the Orville, of the Wright brothers and Edison and all these innovators. We are going through another phase of this. Trump calls it the golden era, but I'll just say I think we are entering an era where the United States becomes the best version that it's ever been.
This is a stark contrast to a lot of my guest views, some of whom have told me the exact opposite, Lior. We're entering a global age of perhaps another economic depression because of protectionism, because of uncertainty around trade, because of the loss of trust as America as a leader, because of potentially a brain drain from America because people don't like Trump's policies, because potentially the tariffs are going to induce a recession. Just counterpoints to everything you've said so far. How would you respond to these points?
Well, I think the best response would be that any guest that is bearish should invest bearishly and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And every person that is like-minded to myself should be invested bullishly and see what happens. As you pointed out, the S&P 500 is trading at an all-time high. I started to invest when my basically my father went bankrupt when I was 13, and I started to work and collect babysitting money and doing odd jobs. At the age of 16, I got the banker to sign a waiver and allow me to start buying equities as a minor, age 16. And since then, I've been hearing about bullish and bearish stories. And anyone that has invested in the growth of America in the last 23 years has done phenomenally well. And anyone that has found opportunities within the global economy has done absolutely well. So I think the optimism is the only way that you can be an investor at all times. There is no other way. Now, can you be cautious or bearish at particular moments? Yes, but you're asking if this is such a moment,
Yeah.
and I absolutely do not think so. I think that the opposite is true. You now have a very capable government in the United States, and the whole structure that was bankrupting the West is basically getting dismantled. The West effectively was selling and liquidating its assets and enjoying a peace dividend that only helps the elite since Clinton and then Bush, certainly with Obama, and then with Biden. The West was dismantling itself and basically funding the rise of its opponent armies and militaries. It was offshoring its critical industries, and it was putting on regulation on top of regulation to become weaker and more politically correct, but less competitive. And that era, which was a delusional era, is over. And I think that you're going to see a lot of growth coming back, and you're going to see a boom for small cap companies. You're going to see a boom in real estate in America, and whoever's bearish is probably going to miss the biggest ever wealth creation phase for Americans and anyone that invests in America. I would the best way I can describe it is in between 1993 and 2024, America was not America. So if you were bearish on that America, I can understand why. But you have entered a new phase. And when I speak to Americans, they're still bearish because it's almost like they were underwater for 31 years and their eyes were just looking at the abyss. So now they're just coming out, but they go back down. They can't believe that they're breathing air because for 31 years they've been looking at the abyss. And America voted for an anti-constitutional president, a communist, a person with dementia. Like they went through everything, and I think that it's important to understand that they are starting to get out of the woods, and there's so much that is coming in the way of opportunity. So I understand your guess, but I believe that whoever is going to miss out on what's coming in the next few years is going to miss out on huge opportunities. Huge.
I will get to your investment opportunities that you are most bullish on in just a minute, but just dovetailing on what you said about America leading the charge right now. Well, here's an article about what's going to happen in China this coming week. So Beijing, China's Xi Jinping is about to welcome a coalition of non-Western nations in a summit, a large summit. President Xi Jinping will gather more than 20 world leaders at a regional security forum in China next week in a powerful show of global South solidarity in the age of Donald Trump, while also helping sanctions hit Russia pull off another diplomatic coup. This is an article from Reuters. Now, we have here President Vladimir Putin, leaders from Central Asia, the Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia have all been invited to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit held in China, August 31st to September 1st. So we'll look out for the details of that summit. But this is a big show of force, like the first paragraph said. What does this imply for the age of post-American hegemony? We have now basically two competing blocks of power worldwide, is America still the leader?
So we actually have two competing blocks and a third one, which is the global south, which is headed by India. So India, what India is positioning itself to be as the world's largest country in terms of demographics, and a very well versed in English, and they are in a very strategic position between Russia, Europe, the Middle East, and China. Their position in the world is incredible. They share a border with China, but they are also very close to the Middle East, which is basically the highway for the world. So what's happening is the the entire map of the world is getting redrawn. And in 1900, we had 50 countries. Today, we have 200 countries. Okay? And the reason that the 20th century was the era of creation of countries is because of the two world wars and the agreements and basically the treaties that came after them. What's happening right now in the world is you have the rise of superpowers that are asserting their dominance over other countries. In other words, the Woodrow Wilson doctrine that every ethnic group deserves a country is coming undone. And you will see regional powers devouring and swallowing up neighboring countries. You're already seeing a lot of these. You're seeing you're seeing Trump looking at Greenland, looking at Canada.
Sorry, what do you mean by swallowing up? Like military
it depends
force?
on the region. It depends on the region.
Spheres of influence? Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. It just depends on the region. You're seeing it in Russia, Ukraine. You just saw it in the Middle East with the toppling over of the Assad regime.
Yes.
Lebanon is basically not a country anymore. And you're going to see it a lot more.
What do you mean it's not a country anymore?
Effectively, their government is asking the Hezbollah terrorist organization to dismantle. The Hezbollah terrorist organization does not want to dismantle. So you have within their government two governments right now. And they are on the verge of either civil war or some sort of an unrest. The treaties that have held up the world, like you say, during the American hegemony phase of the post-Soviet world between 1993 and today, with the rise of China becoming the force that ended this hegemony for the United States, is the next phase. And India and Russia and China and all these other countries are looking at where their new place in the world is. Should they get closer to China and the CCP? Should they get closer to America? These maps are getting redrawn, and here is how they will get redrawn. The entire key to how these shape up is trade routes and choke points. Whoever controls the trade routes and choke points is going to be are going to be the important countries. I'll give you a few examples. The Suez Canal, for example, was controlled and is controlled by by Egypt. The Houthis in Yemen are disrupting trade and shipment through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal. Mm-hmm. India's place in the world is disrupted by this because the income from the Suez Canal is $800 million a month that are now being disrupted. So now you have a country that is in an entirely new place, and China is trying to gain influence in that country. The first island chain, which are the 14 countries that surround the South China Sea and the North China Sea, are flooded with American troops right now, with Japanese troops, with long-range missiles, all pointing towards China. And China is obviously trying to break that first island chain by some sort of an operation that they may or may not do with Taiwan. That will help them dismantle that first island chain. That first island chain is what basically stops China from projecting power to the open seas, just like Imperial Japan did back in the day. And that is what contains China. That's why they need the Belt and Road Initiative, because they need a land infrastructure to get to Eurasia and Europe, because they can't do it by open seas. They don't have the luxury that America has. Russia, for example, tried to build a Belt and Road corridor going north to south, headed through the Caucasus, where Armenia and Azerbaijan were, and going through Syria. That has fallen apart. All of these trade routes are going to shape the future because we are going from a hyper globalization world where every country sources its materials and its products and services from other countries according simply to price, and we are moving into a world where price is not the only calculations that countries make, it's reliance. And therefore, you see tariffs being enacted, and you're seeing a struggle over these valuable choke points.
Right.
That's the new model. And it's important to understand that because that's where China comes in, India comes in, Russia comes in. That's how the ceasefire lines with Russia and Ukraine are going to be drawn. They are going to be drawn according to the areas that can serve as trade routes. And that's why Trump and Putin
Okay.
met in Alaska, for example, because that trade route, the Bering Strait, is very important for how the world is going to be shaped up. So I think
Yeah.
that it's critical.
You brought up just very briefly Trump wanting to absorb Greenland and Canada. I mean, you don't think he's actually serious, is he? And even if you think he's serious, which a lot of people don't, but I'll get your opinion. I mean, what's his broader rhetoric here? What is he trying to accomplish in the grand scheme of things?
Well, first of all, Trump's game theory is that whatever he says is serious. So if he says that, it's not to crack a joke or it's not for anything apart from being very serious. The If you want to talk Greenland first,
Mm,
Greenland has served as a naval base for American troops for many times, including in the Second World
hmm
War.
hmm
There's troops and bases of America in Greenland right now, and there are Russian and Chinese ports there as well. Greenland is up for grabs, whether it's China, Russia, or the United States. So you choose. That is why Trump is talking about Greenland because it's a battleground. Okay,
Yeah,
it's just that you don't have media in the West. You have something else. The mainstream, the establishment media, it doesn't report anything. It's basically it serves as a almost like a wing of the deep state. So Greenland is a strategic corridor where underlying cables go under it. It can be disrupted by Russia. It can be disrupted by China. It can disrupt Canada. It's super important, and it's just going to be a battleground.
I see.
Originally, the Secretary of State in 1859 was already talking about buying Greenland from Denmark. This goes back almost 150 years. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of talks about it, and it's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. The Greenland people are going to accept either the Chinese influence, the Russian influence, or the American influence on their territory. If you're talking about Canada, I think it's because of a different methodology. But what's being talked about in seriousness right now is the province of Alberta specifically, and because it has the legal authority to secede, and obviously the United States of America has the legal authority to add a state. The last states that were added were Alaska and Hawaii. So it's being talked about. Whether or not it happens is not for me to say, but the discussing it
Yeah,
shows you that we are moving away from a world where America tries to buy influence by with the USAID and with subversive operations from the CIA and onwards, and they are moving into a world where they are talking politics and diplomatics openly, and everything is about business and merit. And if you are a country that doesn't have an army and doesn't have a viable financial plan, then you may not survive the next 20, 25 years as a sovereign state.
Okay, so that's all interesting. But how does this actually flesh out with your investment thesis? In other words, let's go back to your investment thesis here. You said that this is the most bullish environment in American history for the last decade or two. I'm paraphrasing here, not exact words, but you are very bullish. Which sectors are you most bullish on and why?
I am very bullish on domestic small cap American companies, mostly listed on, for example, the Russell 2000. Those would be a great place to start because what's happening in America right now is you have an AI revolution that is putting in trillions of dollars of capex inside of America. All of these areas. Have you seen the cabinet meeting that was held 2 days ago? It was an open meeting. If you have or you haven't, President Trump was holding a piece of paper that Mark Zuckerberg sent to him, and it had a layout of the island of Manhattan, and on it was slapped the new plant that Meta is building. The plant is the size of the island of Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's a $50 billion plant. The construction is $50 billion, and they're building multiple ones, and they're not the only ones that are building it. To build these and to fuel the AI revolution, you need to triple, not double, but triple the electrical output in America. That means an insane amount of building. And people just sometimes do not grasp the evolution of the United States of America from 13 colonies with a few million people to where it is today. It was an agricultural 13 colonies 250 years ago. Today, it is the number one economy in the world with a GDP of $25 trillion. Okay? So we have to realize the machine that is the United States of America, when properly unleashed, is the most incredible economic force. And when you look at how it's being governed today, and the size of the opportunity with AI, there is no reason not to be bullish on small cap domestic companies because they will be the main beneficiaries of all of this capital expenditures that are happening throughout America. These plants are going to require materials, are going to require labor. The entire class of 20-year-olds to 30-year-olds will need to be retrained in trades instead of the worthless college degrees that they have. The opportunities within various states where deregulation is going to occur and positive demographics, lower income tax, opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are going to be areas in America where they're going to basically dismantle income tax for 2 or 3 or 4 years if you build a house there or give you another incentive to move there. You will see a nation of builders coming back. You have also a huge generation of millennials that have postponed their marriage, one for economic reasons, then because of the pandemic, and then because of unaffordability of housing. Once you start to see the Fed cutting rates and deregulation of the banking sector, where regional banks are going to be able to create their own interest rate policies apart from the Fed funds rate, which is going to happen, then you will see a lot of these states that are basically trapped and beholden to the Fed unleashed. And you will see business loans, commercial loans, mortgages. The entire country, the entire United States of America is going to be on steroids. And if you don't see it, that's fine. You don't have to see it. You can unsee it. But regardless, if it's going to happen, it is the biggest opportunity for small cap domestic companies because they are basically going to be the main beneficiaries of the golden era that is coming to America.
You're bullish on small caps, but why has the Russell 2000 underperformed the large caps in the last 5 years, the last 1 year, year to date? It's just been a laggard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly the thesis that I'm laying out. Under the uniparty deep state rule, you were dismantling America's gut. You were taking all of the enormous gift that is the United States industrial economy. You were letting the CCP basically rip off your IP, your manufacturing capacity, your trade secrets. You were giving away money, your children's money, your grandchildren's money. You were financing all this debt so other countries can get rich. And effectively, this only helped the elites. That's why you have a huge disparity of wealth and income in America between the elites that were basically selling everything, moving it out of the country to arbitrage labor countries with much lower salaries, and then selling it back to the United States. And not only selling it back to the United States, but the U.S. was the one, the U.S. Navy, that your funding with your tax dollars was the one securing all the trade routes throughout the world so this can happen. The middle class of America was the most abused class of people in the last 30 years. And that's why the Russell 2000, which is that part of America, that's these are the small cap companies. These are the middle class companies. These are the companies that would be suffering the most when you liquidate your country and sell it offshore. And now, when everything is coming back, you will see the Russell 2000 absolutely outperforming after almost 20 years of underperformance. The Nasdaq and the S&P 500, these are all coming. So what you showed just proves why I'm so bullish, because for so many years it's been underperforming for those very reasons.
Are you taking profits on gold, silver, gold in particular, consolidating above new all-time highs for basically since mid-April? Is this the time to be taking profits on gold?
I'm personally not. No.
No, why not?
Um, I believe that gold is going a lot higher in this cycle. We are in a cycle that may end up in the reformation of the Federal Reserve. Perhaps the swallowing up of the Federal Reserve into the Treasury, perhaps much more alignment between the Fed and the Treasury. And when you look at how the United States uh, debt to GDP and gold reserves that they have that are worth around $700 billion today, mark to market, if they were revalued, compared to the size of their economy, compared to the money supply, the price of gold does not deserve to be where it is. It deserves to be a lot higher. And if we're restructuring and moving towards a much more balanced global economy, then the dollar is going to go from being 60% of all transactions today, which is artificially high because of its role during this hyper globalized era, to probably a more proportional size comparative to the size of the economy. The US is currently a quarter of the world's economy. Let's say it becomes about a third of the global economy in the next decade as it grows and takes share from other countries. The dollar will be substantially debased. Now, on aggregate, because of deregulation, because of tariffs, and because of a lot of reforms in income tax, the aggregate outcome of this would be that Americans will be wealthier, but the dollar is going to go lower. I don't know if you saw the most recent appointment that Trump made to the Fed, Stephen Myron. Stephen Myron is effectively a weak dollar policy advocate. And Trump himself said, strong dollar is nice for politics. It's nice to say, hey, I have a strong currency. But you really want a weak dollar if you want to be competitive. And I think that the dollar is artificially too high. If you want to show a graph on screen of the DXY or the
Sure.
Bloomberg index, you'll see it's trading at near an all-time high, a 25-year high. The dollar is very strong compared to other fiat currencies. If
What do you mean by too high? I mean, yes, you're right. It's been it's been hovering around this range basically since 2000.
Yep.
But too high implies that it's overvalued. What do you mean by that?
Exactly that. It is overvalued compared to where it would be if and when um, conferences and summits like the one that you're seeing with India and Russia and China create their own economic framework where they trade either in their own currency or in a blockchain-based common currency that they create, the dollar amount that is held with these countries is disproportionately high, too high, because of the economy that was built through trade deficits. With tariffs and with the reshoring of manufacturing to the United States, this global trade will normalize and subside and become much more healthy. But in that process, the dollar will be weaker. It will not lose its reserve currency role because no country wants that burden and responsibility. It carries so much um, so many things that have to go right, and only the United States has those characteristics to their economy and politics and constitution, etc. Other countries just do not want that. In fact, the Chinese currency has never been free trading. Effectively, you don't even know what it's worth. Um,
Well,
so
it's
when
a
you look
managed float. Yeah.
it doesn't trade freely. If it trades freely, you don't even know what it's worth right now. So the U.S. dollar is the world's best currency, but it is
Hmm.
drastically overvalued because of its responsibility as the global reserve currency. Stephen Myron and other policymakers like him that are entering the Fed right now and are in the Treasury and share Lutnick's and Besant's and Trump's economic thesis all say the same thing. They want a competitive dollar, and that is a different way of saying that they want a weaker dollar. I think that gold is eventually going to go during this term over 4,000 and probably towards the 4,500s before Trump exits office. And I think that silver is definitely going to hit a new all-time high between now and 2028. And in fact, I believe that it's going to go towards 80. So effectively doubling from here by the end of his term.
How did you come up with 80?
The maturity of the gold and silver bull market is such that it is very early. If you look at the 1970s, when you went off the gold standard, gold went up from 35 to 850 24 times. Silver went from $1.92 to 50. That's 25 times. Okay. In the 2000s, gold went from 250 to 1900. That's nearly 8x. Silver went from about 4 to 49. That's 12x. In this current cycle that we're in, where they both bottomed in the April mess of COVID, um, you're not even seeing a 3x right now in gold, and you're just seeing over a 3x in silver. These are not the type of moves that you see in late stage gold silver markets. The gold silver ratio does not reflect a mature gold silver market. So when I'm saying that gold is going to around 45 to 5,000, that implies a mature gold silver market, and that implies a gold silver ratio of less than 60. And that's how you come up with about 80 for silver, because 80 on a 60 to 1 ratio makes sense to for gold to be between 45 and 5,000.
I'm curious how you think Bitcoin is going to fit into this narrative.
Um, I have quite a few interesting um, thoughts regarding Bitcoin and its role in the world. Effectively, Bitcoin is part of a of the most important facet of the new financial system, which is blockchain and decentralization. And I think a lot of governments are going to decide to begin to accumulate into their treasury um, Bitcoin. You see it with the strategic stockpile that the U.S. government has, and I think a lot of other countries are going to do the same thing. And therefore, the price of Bitcoin is going to continue to go higher. Um, it is becoming a very important and strategic part of the global economy. But I think that where the real opportunity with cryptocurrencies is with the stable coins, because what you're going to start to see happening is you're going to see. So most of the world, David, is unbanked. Most of the world is unbanked. You have 54 African countries. If you go there, you don't see a Starbucks in every corner with a Chase or with a Wells Fargo or with the Bank of America. They will not have that infrastructure. They will never have banks at every street corner. Latin America is the same thing. India, same thing. China. These are not countries that are built like the American banking system. Now, if you have, and you will have, the major US banks starting to issue their stable coins are going to be backed by the dollar. If you are now living in one of the 54 corrupt African countries and you have a cell phone, a smartphone, and the penetration of smartphone is about 60% right now or 65%. And I can tell you that you can have your savings in a stable coin issued by a major US bank pegged 100% to the dollar instead to your own currency that you've seen inflate 3 times over the course of your life. Your parents have told you that they lost everything 3 or 4 times during your lives. What do you think is going to happen? So the real magnet is going to be with countries that are going to be able to offer theirs, or not countries, but economies that are going to be exposed for the first time to financial instruments that are 100% pegged to the US dollar. And that is a huge opportunity both for the stability of the US dollar as the reserve currency in the 21st century and also for American businesses, but it also unlocks huge economies. The estimated value that is trapped right now in Africa alone is another 10
Yeah.
trillion to the global economy. We're talking about young demographics, very young demographics, working in the productive class. So the opportunities are huge, and Bitcoin plays a huge role in that.
I understand the stablecoin story. It's a good story. It makes sense. But what is the investment case around stablecoins? We can't get rich off of a stablecoin. By definition, it's stable. So what are some surrounding ecosystems that could benefit from this? Terra Luna collapsed. So people who invested in the Terra story, believing in stablecoins around that, lost a lot of money. So now people are hesitant around the stablecoin story. So what do we do?
So you're right, and what I'm
Yeah.
saying is what I was talking about is the growth of the blockchain industry and
Yes.
of stablecoins in general, specifically inside of the crypto or DeFi world. You have to learn and study the different opportunities for yourself. There is nothing that I said specifically about stablecoins that is a singular personalized investment
Hmm.
opportunity. The size of this industry, the market for it, the growth opportunities that pertain to it will come from companies servicing it, and you can invest in those or by working in this industry. This industry is the next phase of banking. A lot of industries are getting literally rewritten. And so when you look at stages of opportunity in the last 30 years, give me
Yes.
one amazing industry that was on hyper growth in America and that you can easily get into. Getting into working for one of the top tech companies is not easy. It's not something that is accessible for the average person. But ground floor opportunities that
Yeah.
start literally now, um, uh, uh, that is something that is incredibly appealing. And we have literally a new industry that is at the bedrock of everything, AI, and that is the mother lode in terms of where you should think about your profession and where you should be looking to um, for investment opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lior. This is a good first introduction, and plenty more to discuss another time, I'm sure. So, where can we learn more from you and read your work in the meantime?
We publish Wealth Research Group every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. You can easily subscribe on our homepage to the free financial newsletter. It's effectively like listening to one of these interviews, but in 5 minute reads 3 times a
Hmm.
week. So we cover the economy, we cover politics in terms of geopolitics. More from the standpoint of China and Russia and the United States and where all the pieces are moving, and we cover specific opportunities like my own portfolio that is accessible at wealthresearchgroup.com/portfolio. You can literally download it right now.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you very much, Lior. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
We'll talk next time. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.